Good morning. For 7 months in Hawaii, I worked on manuscripts and on tape recordings, on some manuscripts that are still to be published, on the mail and healing work, always waiting for a call that would come to give more classwork. All of this time, letters were coming from New York, Washington, D.C., state of Washington, Oregon, California, Chicago, Cincinnati, Detroit, Kansas City, asking for classes, saying that students were signing up for classes. In one case, even saying they'd gladly send the check on in advance for classes. And yet, the call did not come. There was no answering response. And one of the last letters that I wrote was to Mrs. Caldwell saying, I doubt if it will be this year. The call does not seem to come. And then immediately after that, even before she could have received the letter, it was as definite and clear as could be. Go to New York and be there the entire month of November and a few days in December. And I immediately sat down and wrote to Mrs. Caldwell, told her to make the arrangements, and as I was writing, it said definitely 2 lectures, a closed class, 2 lectures, and a closed class. And that's the way it has been. Coming through, I had a telephone call from Oregon, from the leader of a center there, saying that I had been in meditation at 3 o'clock this morning when the voice came clearly saying that you were to do a big work in New York and that message would spread out through the entire country. Whatever it is you have in mind, it is already established. But thank you. After I arrived here, a letter came from another source saying evidently New York is to begin another phase of the work. Well, of course, you know that in the first part of our work, the subject of God was clarified. The subject of God is without doubt the letter of truth. It is a statement brought to our awareness to the effect that prayer does not change either God or the universe. Prayer is, from the standpoint of the letter, the acknowledgement that God is the creative principle and the maintaining and sustaining influence of the universe. And that for this reason, discord never had a place in it and has no place, no power, no function, no jurisdiction, no entity, no identity. Prayer reaching a higher state would be the spiritual realization of this truth, not merely the declaration. In practice, we found that it works something like this. We, as workers, are faced with a problem called a person, place, thing, or condition. And we will say that that plant there is now the problem. That plant may be named John Jones, or that plant may be named cancer, or that plant may be named unemployment. But there it is. That is the claim right out there. And heretofore, in metaphysical ways, we have handled that claim from the different angles as taught in the various metaphysical movements. But we, from the standpoint of God is, handled it from an entirely different standpoint. We neither denied its existence nor affirmed it as a spiritual idea. We took the standpoint of not putting a label upon it, not calling it good or evil, not calling it spiritual or material, not calling it ill health or good health, but merely looking upon it with the realization, or rather the understanding, that whatever it is, there is existence there. What the name or nature of that existence, we at the moment do not know. We do stand on the fact that since God is, God also is manifest, and therefore is a true state of being, and we're dealing now with something that is. And we face it. And by that I do not mean that we look at it as an outlined thing. We don't have to sit and look at a case of grip and look right at the body of the person having it. But we face the situation that there is a claim there, and that whatever the name or nature of the claim, something exists. And we are not calling it good or bad. We're not saying that we must get rid of it or overcome it or rise above it. We are acknowledging it as an is. Now then, experience shows that this sets up a momentary sense of, I've used the word vacuum. It's a bad word for the simple reason that the word vacuum means empty space, I guess, and emptiness. And there is no empty space in spiritual awareness. So it isn't actually a vacuum, but it seems like a momentary pause, as if we were waiting for this answer to come through. We know it is, but what is it? And in that second, we have that state of receptivity. We have that listening attitude. This is, what is it? And then from that depth of withinness, there comes an answering response. That answering response may say, this is my beloved child in whom I'm well pleased, my beloved son. That answering response may say, this is the Christ, the Son of the living God. Or the answering response may come in a scriptural quotation of another sort, or metaphysical. Or it may merely come as a sense of peace, just as our answers come in all our healing work. It may come in a sense of peace, a sense of harmony, a sense of release from fear. And you have that feeling, it is done, all is well. Now, the first part of that, the realization of is, was of course your treatment or first stage of prayer. The second part, that waiting for the still small voice or the inner impulse, that was your second part of prayer, which is actual realization. And as you know, it isn't just declaring is that heals anyone, it is realization. And so when that realization comes, you can be assured that God is on the field, that harmony is to be revealed. That is not the healing of disease and the bringing about of health, that realization is a spiritual insight to the harmony that was already there, despite all appearances to the contrary. Now, over and over this month's work you have heard, the natural man receiveth not the things of God. And I would ask you to remember that that is an absolute statement of fact. That none of these declarations of truth, affirmations of truth, none of these statements of truth, none of these writings of truth is the power of redemption, of salvation. The power of salvation is the Christ, that which was unveiled, revealed to us yesterday morning and last night. The power of salvation, of redemption, of resurrection, rebirth, ascension, any of the protection, any of these things, the power of them is the Christ, or that faculty of realization that enables us to have the realization. Those who are attempting to practice metaphysics or spiritual wisdom without due regard for that Christ are missing the way and failing in much of their work. They're depending too much on an effect, the letter of truth, and not enough on the cause, which is this spiritual intuition, this inner feeling, this inner attunement, oneness. Now, the Master revealed an actual thing, let's call it for the moment thing, an actual entity or identity, or let us say an actual state of being. It's so hard to define the word or term Christ. But the Master revealed that which we know as the Christ. Now the Christ is not just a term. It's not just a name. The Christ is a being, a state of being, a state of consciousness, a state of awareness, a presence, a power. It is something very tangible. There is no mistaking the Christ when you feel it. There is no mistaking the Christ when you see it. Yes, the Christ has been seen. Sometimes people see the figure of a man they identify as Jesus and say, I've seen the Christ, and they have. They've seen their interpretation of the Christ. The Christ itself is without form and yet appears very, very much as form. And it is this Christ that is unveiled in his teaching, and of which Isaiah, of all those in the Hebrew Testament, Isaiah alone had the full vision. Well, I say Isaiah alone had the full vision. To my sense, Isaiah alone had the full vision of the Christ. Isaiah realized its name and its nature. Mighty Counselor, peace, peace. Well, when Isaiah prophesies the Christ, he is virtually stating that it does not exist now in manifest form, nor is it anywhere demonstrated on earth at present, but it is coming now. That is the prophecy of Isaiah. Now, remember this, though. That which is coming already is. but not identifiable, not in actual activity. It is much like, is it Tennyson, who wrote in his poem about the cargoes in the air that had come raining bombs on the earth in war and carrying cargoes in peace? Now, no such thing existed in his time. And I'm sure there were very few who even saw those lines as a prophecy. They probably saw them as fantasy in a poet's mind. But these were outlined in definite form in Tennyson's mind, even to their function in both war and in peace. Well, for Tennyson to have been aware of them, they must have existed. They must have been complete. He saw them in the air, he saw them flying, he saw their cargoes, their nature, their function. So they must have existed. They existed, but not yet in tangible form to our sense. They existed as things to come, evidence of things not yet seen. And so it is that Isaiah sees that which already exists. He knows there is a Christ. He himself has undoubtedly experienced it in a great measure. I'm going to take up more of that later this week. And in these chapters 60, 61, and 62, he shows that as this Christ touches consciousness, all things are drawn to it. All things of the Spirit made evident in our world. He shows that those who are enemies now serve us, that the inferior things of life will be changed into the valuable things of life, and all things drawn unto those who have this Christ, whereas before men did not know you. Nobody came your way. You were just a nothing and a nobody. Now, through the realization or activity of this Christ, men come bearing gifts. Now you see that as you catch a fuller vision of Isaiah, you will see that its meaning is that as this Christ touches the human consciousness, we are no longer that worthless human being ignored of all, by all, but now are we the sons of God, and it is evident that we are sons of God, and we are imbued with this higher vision or higher sense. Now that is where your practice of spiritual healing comes in. Nobody can practice spiritual healing through the mind, through that thing which is but an instrument. The only healing practice comes with the realization or revelation or unveiling of the Christ in consciousness, so that as you sit before this claim, you do not humanly say it's an error, we must rise above it, and then we will have harmony, but through the spiritual vision of the Christ, you behold that actually harmony is there. It isn't something going to be manufactured any more than the Christ is to be manufactured in a later generation. It is here and now, and we through the Christ behold the perfection that is. You cannot behold spiritual perfection humanly. You cannot, by making statements, behold spiritual perfection only through the spiritual faculties. It says, we do not know how to pray. We must let the Spirit bear witness with our spirit. We must let the Spirit make intercession. And so it is that humanly we sit before all human experience and see it as every human does, three-dimensional. and with the pairs of opposites, good and evil. But as this Spirit of Christ, of real vision, touches consciousness, all of a sudden you look out, and the universe isn't that way at all. It isn't that kind of a place. It's a new dimension in which you perceive the divine harmonies that no human being ever will see until they too become imbued with that Spirit. 8th chapter of Romans. If so be the Spirit of God dwell in you, then are ye the children of God. If so be. At the moment of this, it was called descent of the Holy Ghost. Until this moment of transition, when this higher awareness comes to consciousness, until then, you will behold poverty as poverty and sin as sin and disease as disease. But with this higher consciousness, you now see, well, none of those things are there. You see through them and behold with this inner vision the divine being, the divine presence, the allness that is. Now, think back on the many years of your study and see how much of it has taken place in your thinking processes, in your reasoning processes, or in trying to change a bad condition into a good one, or an unemployment into employment, or a disease into health, instead of catching the realization of this spiritual vision in which all discords and inharmonies fade out as shadows and the reality appears. Now this work, this month, is the unveiling of this Christ in human consciousness. It was understood thoroughly by Isaiah, and he even saw that it would come, that there would be a Prince of Peace to reveal it on earth, and that through this individual and at this particular time, the revelation and the demonstration of the revelation would come. You might say, why didn't Isaiah do it himself? Well, I think Emerson covered that. There is nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come. There is no such thing as bringing forth an airplane until the airplane's time has come. No such thing as bringing forth railroad trains or telephones or televisions until their time has come. Who determines that? It isn't determined by any who. It is determined by the development of unfolding consciousness. It is just in the same wise that you must go through grammar school if you are to understand that which is given in high school. You must go through high school if you are to understand that which is to be given at the university. There must be an unfolding consciousness, a continually expanding, deepening, ripening, enriching consciousness in order to perceive the greater things that lie ahead. You cannot give the university to the average child. You can to that exceptional one who has come over from wherever children come from with the fully developed consciousness. Then you can. Certainly you can give the higher mathematics to Joel Kupferberg because he has brought that higher consciousness right here with him, and we know those who can play piano and organ at 2 and 3 years of age. They have brought that with them, but that is not the run of mankind. Mankind has this human sense which must be educated. Now, of course, education itself has been misunderstood, and so a great deal of education is pummeling into the student something from outside. Only now, in this last generation, are they beginning better to understand that an education is a drawing out from within. And so we in this work understand that no amount of truth poured into human consciousness will of itself develop spiritual awareness. But the innate spiritual Christ, which is the true center of being, of everyone's being, can be drawn forth from them. And it is drawn forth from them with time, with patience, with love. It cannot come forth before its time any more than a child can be born before its time, or an elephant. It can only be born, the Christ can only come into birth in its time, and its time is the time of your unfolding consciousness. And that is why there are those who catch the realization and vision of the Christ instantly. Whether they had a preparation on this plane or that one before, we do not know, but some catch it very quickly. Others, a long drawn-out process, and I have had experience with many students who have studied 20 and 30 years and haven't caught the first glimpse of it. They, if they continue, and they will, there's no place to turn back to, they will continue, and it will come to them, whether on this plane or the next plane. One thing everyone must realize: life is eternal. We did not begin in 1890-something or 1880-something or 1900-something. Had we thus begun, we would probably end in 1900-something. But there is that within us which reveals the continuity of existence, the immortality even of individual beings. And tracing that backward, we soon come into the realization that it also has existed long before that birth date on the birth certificate. And so it is that the fact that we do not attain it in this year or next year, or on this plane or the next plane, is of no great moment. Those who have turned to the work will find it revealed. But the point now, and this is the major point, is that just as there was a period for the introduction of this revelation and demonstration of Christ 2,000 years ago, it would appear from all the signs that are in the world that this is again an age for the appearing or the reappearing of that revelation, realization, and demonstration of the Christ. Now, Isaiah predicted that it would come and named this Prince of Peace. Whether or not he identified him as the man Jesus or as a certain particular man, I would have no way of knowing. I would doubt it. So, do I doubt that any individual on the face of the globe has been ordained to be that revelator? And so I believe that this unfolding consciousness, which brought in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, brought metaphysics into this world, I believe that that was the era, the age at which this reappearing began, and that it has continued in unfoldment up to this point where we are now, and that it is going to be greatly heightened, whereas it has reached probably a couple of million people in the world up to now through these metaphysical teachings. Appearances indicate to me feelings, things that are in the press, things that are in the mail, indicate that this is an era when this unveiled Christ will appear in human consciousness. Now, we are but instruments of it. We are but among those catching some of that light, probably just a little in advance of many others. But there are other people and other groups like ourselves catching that light in different ways. A letter today telling me that this is a wonderful age to live in, and then saying that in this community so many friends are speaking of God's miracles and God's work in the world, the same people that 5 years ago would have been shocked even at the word God in conversation. And I have brought this out before. Newspaper editors, magazine editors, seeking more writings on spiritual subjects. The same publishers who a few brief months ago only had religious news in their columns as a sufferer to be so now. In other words, these are the signs indicating not merely the fact of war and depression, that more people turn to God. No, that would just send them to church, deeper in their ignorance than they were before. But this is not just a period where people are seeking church. There are many people seeking church, more people than ever. But also, many of those are finding something in that church that's going to lead them out of the church into the actual experience of the Christ. So what I'm bringing out now is that this reading of Isaiah 60, 61, and 62 is really the prophecy not only of what happened in the Master's time, but what is happening now. And what we must begin to realize, there is nothing personal about the Christ except that the Christ appears personally as your consciousness and mine. It is personal in that sense, that as we receive it, it is personal to us, just as it was personal to Jesus, to those of the disciples who received it, so it is personal to us, but it is not personal in the sense that it is something that you and I can claim as of or for our own selves. Watch for this very carefully. This is the Spirit of God in individual consciousness. And it must come to those that are prepared for it. Now you will find this. Search the lives of those in this room, and you will find the years of study, the devotion to some form of metaphysical thought or practice. You will find the years of study, the dollars spent for books, the time given to study, to church, to all of the activities that would enrich consciousness to this point. Look at the lives of those who are not in this room, and you will find that in a lesser degree they have been turning toward this light. And then go out into the world and find those who have not yet started, and you will catch exactly what I mean. That any individual can be an avenue of this Christ in proportion to the devotion to that search. But then there comes the stumbling block to realization. That which has delayed, hampered, hindered the progress of most metaphysical students is the desire to use this power for a purpose. In other words, that the Christ may bring employment, or the Christ may bring health, or the Christ may bring supply, or the Christ may bring another home. And that has hindered their progress. It is true that the Christ has done those things in some measure, but the fullness of the vision has been lost. Those who see only the hunger and thirst for the realization of Christ Not only find the Christ, but then find that the Christ is health, is supply, is peace, is joy. And that the way has been lost through seeking the Christ or God as a means to. Now this is one of the very first points that revealed itself to me years and years ago in the practice. One of the very first points that helped me to come out and be separate from the bulk of those who still were trying to demonstrate in the realm of thought and things. It was clear to me that there was only one demonstration to be made, and that is the demonstration of the Christ. With the demonstration of the Christ, harmony descends upon us. Now, we are at the place where that can be understood by all of our students and all of our patients in proportion as we ourselves understand it. Naturally, it is an impossibility to teach something that we ourselves do not understand. And unless we ourselves understand that the goal is realization of the Christ, not the demonstration of anything else, we will not be able to impart that wisdom to anyone. Let this world realize Christ, and it will not have to seek for world peace or world prosperity or good governments in Washington or London or Rome or Berlin or Moscow. Let us realize, let this Christ be unveiled. Let this vision come to us that Christ is, and that Christ is being, that Christ is here, that Christ is available, that Christ is the sum total of our true being, that Christ is our vision. Through Christ we behold this universe as it is. Through Christ, through this inner unfoldment, through this inner realization, we behold this universe as it is, and we behold it in love and in life. We sometimes wonder why love isn't a greater power than it appears to be. The answer is that we do not properly understand love. Love is not love when it has an object. In other words, if we say, I love my child, that is not love. If we say, I love flowers, that is not love. If we say, I love beauty, that is not love. That is a human sense of love, or you might call it a finite or limited sense of love. Love goes beyond loving something or somebody, and that I am sure I will never be able to define for you. That is a revelation that will have to come within your own being as you realize what love is. Now, the love that is enfolds everything within its being and yet does not make it an object of love. I suppose we might say the sun shines, but it would be wrong to say that the sun shines upon the earth. It doesn't. It hasn't any awareness of the earth and cares nothing about the earth. The sun shines. If the earth gets in its way and benefits by it, I guess that's beautiful. In the same way, the sun shines, and we may have a suntan, but the sun does not shine in order that we may have a suntan. The sun shines, and that is that. The tides are on time, not because they love to see ships get to shore in the right way, not to help navigation. The tides are the tides. We become aware of those, and that makes our system of navigation. But I'm sure that if the tides operated just for the sake of ships or fishermen, we'd soon have a tangled up sense of existence, because then would come the question of the tide's only doing it for our fishermen, not for our Russian enemy. No, a higher sense of love must come into our existence, and one that at this moment I have no power of explaining or defining. I have only the ability to reveal to you, to say to you, that love, which loves something or somebody, is not that love which is of God, but is our sense of that love. It is not that there are two loves, there is only one. It is that love which is of God, but it is not the pure love. It is our limited sense of love. And so it's going to be with your understanding of Christ. The moment you think of Christ as a means to an end or having an object, you lose the vision of the Christ. Christ is the thing in and of itself, and the vision of the Christ embodies all that is, and because of that Christ, they bring you gold and silver and give recognition to you and honor you, and your enemies come to be your servants. All of this comes not because Christ has that as his object, but because the Christ is the Christ. I would gladly give all the rest of the days of my life if I could explain that. Gladly. I know why the Master could be willing to be crucified if he could give this to the world. Anybody would. But it doesn't lie within the power of an individual at this point, or this individual anyhow, to more than show you that Christ is being. It is our true being, and it is our true vision. It is our true life, and it is our true love. And it is in this age that the Christ is again unveiled in human consciousness, not only in the consciousness of a Messiah, but in the consciousness of all those who now are turning toward the light. Yes, it tells us that the people were in darkness, that those were dark, but arise, shine, thy light is come. Now, undoubtedly, that is the meaning of these prophecies having to do with August 1953 or August 2053. These prophecies that we are passing from the age of Pisces into this higher age of the Christ, of love, of the cosmic. It has to do with the fact that just as Isaiah could see a particular period and type of thought through which the revelation would come, so again is it possible to see that this is the age and we are a particular or peculiar type of thought through which this unfoldment, revelation, and demonstration of the Christ can come. Now, in opening yourselves to this Christ, do not see it as a power that is to dispel error. See it as a vision through which there is no error to be beheld, removed, or destroyed. See it very much, it's a bad symbol, material one, but might serve. In the same way that if your eyes have a blur and you put on glasses and can see distinctly again, that the glasses do not remove a blur out there, but reveal that there was no indistinctness or blur out there. They reveal the harmony that is out there. In the same way, the Christ in our consciousness will not remove sin, disease, and death from the earth. It will reveal a universe of spiritual being and spiritual harmony already intact, and there will be none of these finite suggestions to disturb. I want to meditate. Speaking of this to our friends and relatives will not bring it to pass. This, again, is something that we must entertain in our consciousness. We must fill ourselves through Isaiah and through the New Testament, that we must ponder, that we must bring to light, that we must reveal through a greater and greater faculty or capacity of healing, through the world's ability to discern in us something higher than human good or human evil. And as that is developed within us, that light touches those nearest us who are ready for the experience. But to talk of it is a fantastic thing that will only deprive you of it. Even in telling it to you and to our class at night has resulted in a terrible struggle to me. It is not coming out easily, and it will be worse with you if you talk it until it has become settled within you and rather shown forth more than spoken. Let it be seen, let it be evident rather than claimed outwardly. This Christ does not need a voice. Yes, it uses a voice on occasions like this to the discerning thought. In the same way that these recordings will go all over the United States and Canada, and a few into England and Australia, and will be a voice to those who have ears to listen. But that is the only way in which it needs a voice. It does not need a proselyting voice. It does not need a trying to sell it to friends or relatives. It needs a developed demonstration of it within our own being so that it becomes apparent by our lives and words and deeds rather than our teaching. The attempt to give this message on the highways and byways of the world brought disaster to the disciples and to the apostles. And even though the word spread, it made it possible 300 years later to be so organized as to result in its disappearance from off the face of the earth. There's no question but that the Christ has been absent for 1700 years, except in the case of those few individuals who have caught the vision and lived with their vision on mountaintops or valleys or by seashores. Certainly, the message has not been a world message for 1700 years. Now, the same fate would come today to those who would try to give this in football stadiums, or even to give it in their immediate circle, except to those who show a response to the idea. And also it would make way for its organization later and its destruction. There is only one way in which the Christ can come to earth this time, and that is as it is received in individual consciousness, whether by Jew or Gentile, by white or black, by Protestant or Catholic, and thus carried out almost as a spiritual underground until it so encompasses the world that nobody can get their fingers on it to incorporate it. The moment it would be set apart as a separate teaching or a separate religion, it will have come to its end. Only in the degree that it can be seen that the Christ is the real being of all individual beings, that it is the innate nature and being of all men, once it's aroused and alerted, then through this underground it will reach every type of consciousness in every corner of the globe. And before you know it, it will be in so many ways, in so many places, and in so many religions that nobody will be able to get their finger on it. You all know the quotation about trying to grasp spirit in the hands of matter. And so it is that when you try to nail this Christ down to a person or a group or a religion, you will have lost it. It must be seen for what it is, the Spirit of God in consciousness. That's the way it must be seen. The Spirit of God in individual consciousness, the activity of God in individual consciousness, and it must be seen as the real faculties of individual being. There we will fulfill, love thy neighbor as thyself. Now quickly it comes. Again, it's in Isaiah. This all happens that he may glorify his own, not that he may glorify you or me. The sun shines, not that it may shine upon the earth. It shines, and it glorifies the sun, not the earth. So thus, this Christ has for its function the glorifying of its own being, not glorifying us, but glorifying its own being. It enriches the earth. It enriches it for its own glory. This is all the glory of God, the glory of the Christ, not the glory of man. No man may boast, nor may any man say, the Christ hath done this for me. The Christ hath done this, period. The Christ operates in and through and as its own glory. Oh, the mistake in limiting it and in believing that it has an object of activity. It hasn't. It merely has an activity which is infinite, glorious, and it glorifies itself in its activity. Never accept anything less than the Christ glorifying itself, manifesting itself unto its own glory, in its own fullness, in its own completeness, in its own richness. And so, if through this the world does bring you gold and silver, or name or fame, be careful not to claim it for yourself, or believe that the Christ hath done this to you. The Christ hath done this, period. The Christ has done it unto its own glory, and see it that way. Let all honor and glory and dominion forever be unto it. And now, in preparation, take into thought these quotations of Isaiah. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive, and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. Thou hast multiplied the nations, and not increased the joy. They joy before thee according to the joy in harvest, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For thou hast broken the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, the Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. There shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord, and shall make him of quick understanding in the fear of the Lord. And he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. Righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. Thank you, thank you.